around her, remaining inside the pot. Che vuoi? Mi rompi tutto! Devo rileggere. Hey beautiful readers, it's still me, Lisa, and yes, today I made an effort and put on makeup. I'm better than usual, I would say, and I am gonna review today a book that for me was absolutely great to read, and I want to share with you some tips that I learned throughout. The book I'm talking about is A Swim in a Pond in the Rain by George Saunders. George Saunders, for the ones that do not know, and this is a huge thing, you have to know who this is. He is a teacher and he is someone that writes, and he knows how to write pretty well, and the book that I'm reviewing is a book where he analyzes Russian stories, and from those Russian stories he picks up interesting points that people can reflect upon to create their own good stories. So I think that that book was really interesting because it was really well made, and it was super cool to analyze those stories, to pick up on points that were super useful, and I really had a mind-blowing moment in all of that jazz. I had two moments that were incredible for me because of course they are obvious, but before people tell you, you're not really gonna know. So I am gonna share those 2 points with you now. So I told you how the whole thing is constructed. There is a Russian story at the beginning, then there is the reflection on the Russian story on the following chapter, and then a further reflection that he makes with his students and the people that engage with the story. So I really think it's super cool. And basically there is at the beginning thing that I really love and that changed my perspective on stories, and I really feel that it's super incredible. Also, I have to point out that these tips are both for writers and readers, and this is to enjoy the story to the fullest, because when you read a story and you go through it, you might think, yes, I like it, I don't really know why, but it's really cool, and I don't like it, but I really don't know why I don't like it. And these tips are good for you to understand why you like or don't like a story, and at the same time, if you want to write, they're going to teach you some valuable tips for writing the best story possible. So for me, they are beneficial in both cases because I'm both a writer and a reader, so I really love them so much. The first tip, he says, is that a story has to answer 3 questions in the very beginning. These 3 questions are very important to answer because if the story answers those 3 questions in a satisfactory way, is really good for the following part of the story. People get engaged, get interested, and keep reading. So the first question is, what do you know so far? Second question is, what are you curious about? And third question is, where do you think the story is going? And I want to bring an example to you on how I decided to show you how those questions work. So basically, I chose a story that we all know, not the Russian stories he features because they are a bit too long. So I chose a very short story that I think everyone knows, which is the story of the frog in the pot of boiling water. And I made a quick rewriting of the story in my own style, my own way, very easy, very simple. It's not a good story when I write it, but it was to give you an idea. So I wrote this for the very beginning of the story. There was once a frog that jumped into a pot of water. She decided that she liked the feeling of warm water around her, remaining inside the pot. So we are gonna pose ourselves those 3 questions and we are gonna answer to them. First question is, what do you know so far? We know so far that there is a frog, she is in a pot of water that is starting to boil and she's enjoying the feeling. This is what we know basically. Question number 2 is, what are we interested about? Well, personally, I'm interested to see if the frog will eventually jump out or if she will decide to stay, and if she will be the hero of the situation or just die. And question number 3 is, where do you think the story is going? So I pretended I did not know where the story was going and made up a possible ending for the story. So I said that I imagine the frog jumping out of the water at the last second, and she is not very healthy because she has remained in the water too much, and so she will die for the burns. But let's see where the story goes. To get to the second very important point that I realized by reading this book. Basically, this is the first part, and I think that it gives you the idea that if the story is interesting enough, it has to satisfactorily answer to those three questions. We have answered that, yes, we are interested, yes, we know where it might go, and yes, we know some bits, enough to keep us interested. So this is very good. So now we are going to get to the second very important point that I discovered throughout the book, and this is the principle of causality. The principle of causality is basically that you have a cause and effect motion that brings the story throughout the story, and I really love how Saunders describes it. And basically we have a basic quote that the principle of causality is described by Saunders as what a story really is a series of things that happen in sequence in which we can discern a pattern of causality. So this is what Saunders says a story is. Ultimately, what does this principle of causality do? In Saunders' words, it creates the appearance of meaning. So this is what Saunders says causality does, and so we are gonna use the second part of the story that I wrote to understand this principle of causality. The water became hotter and hotter, so hot that bubbles started to form on the surface. The frog didn't even have time to panic. In fact, she didn't even realize what was happening. Before it knew it, the frog was cooked. It had waited too long to jump out of the pot. This is my very simplistic ending, but it serves way of explaining how the principle of causality works in the story. So we knew at the beginning of the story that this frog was in the boiling water, and she gets on with her life, enjoys the warmth until, oops, she's cooked. It's so long, she waited too long and has no time to go back. So yeah, kind of a sad story, but I really think it serves the purpose of showing us how this principle works, because we knew before that the frog was in the pot, we knew that she was starting to cook, and yeah, she didn't jump out soon enough because she decided, oh, I enjoy the warmth, and yeah, it didn't serve well at the end because she cooked up. So I really think that these two principles are key for making me both understand how to write a story, but also if I liked a story that I'm reading, because every story has to have these two qualities. And Saunders says, to explain why causality is so important, that causality is to the writer what melody is to the songwriter, a superpower that the audience feel as a crux to the matter, the thing the audience actually shows up for, the hardest thing to do, that which distinguishes the competent practitioner from the extraordinary one. I love this explanation, but this is so true, so good, and I hope that I explained to you the explanation of why causality is so important well enough, and why those three questions you ask yourself are so important. I love it. So rating out of 5 stars, out of what did you learn, is a 5 out of 5. 100%. Out of the work that has been done, I think it's a 4.5 out of 5, but just because he used stories that had already been written, but I think that is clever too. So it's, yeah, I think it's a really, really cool book, and I learned so much by looking into the book, reading the book. It was so good. I really, really loved it. So I really say that it's not even a question if I enjoyed the book, because I really, really did. And this book was also very, very much anticipated and expected, and I think you might love it as well. So I really think that this is a great book. You should all pick it up and learn the way that we could enjoy stories more, because I think it's all a thing that can really blow minds and you can really enjoy. So I really hope that you will find some value in the book if you decide to pick it up. And as always, you have to leave down in the comments below if this explanation helped you in some way or interested you in some way and made you decide to pick up the book, or just if you would like to know more about what he wrote, I can do another video on the actual explanation. If you want, leave it down in the comment below as well. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe, hit a thumb up, and leave a comment on whatever you want to say, or maybe what book you're gonna read next. Just tell me whatever you want in the comments down below, and I really hope you will decide to subscribe to the channel, and see you all next week. Bye guys!